the Lord, and welcome to um, our series on the voice of God. And today we are going to discuss what is the voice of God. It is clearly discussed and mentioned in the Bible many times, and you can look up verses and look up instances of times that the voice of God was heard in the Bible, and you can look up in the Bible and find verses that talk about what the voice of God is and how it performs in our personal lives. And the things that I'm going to talk to you about are definite personal testimonies and stories in my life, but they also um, can relate into experiences in your life. The voice of God is real, and the voice of God, it comes to us in many ways. I remember one time when I was going through something, and of course, my main confidant that I go to is my husband. And the thing that I was going through, we were both going through it. And so it was difficult for us to talk to each other about the circumstance, because the more we talked to each other, the more that we had each other riled up about that circumstance. And we weren't really coming to any type of solution, or it wasn't helping to talk to each other. Sometimes it does help to vent to a pastor, your mate, a friend, your parent, a friend, in something like that, a trusted friend, I would hope. But sometimes the best course is to take it to God in prayer. Let Him hear your voice, and then listen for His voice. And so I like having conversations with people. I like sort of going and hashing it out, and talking about the circumstances and what we can do and how can we do this, or what could we do better, what could we, how are we going to pray about it, just literally dissecting the situation with people and coming to some sort of comfort, or even a solution, as I mentioned. But this situation that my husband and I were involved in, it was more than either of us could solve. Okay? And so one day I was speaking to the Lord, and I said, I just wish that you and I could sit down. I wish we could just sit face to face and talk to each other and go over this, kind of like I would with a friend or with my husband, if he wasn't going through the same thing that I was. And at that moment, I heard the voice of God, and I heard Him tell me, you do hear my voice. And He said, you hear my voice in the sermons that I give to your husband. You hear my voice in the Word of God that you read, and as I highlight and bring different verses to your revelation, to like rhemas from the Word of God, I speak to you from my word. And I spoke to you and speak to you in a cool breeze. Now, I heard the Lord say this in my mind. And what does a cool breeze have to do with the voice of God? In my instance, we were at that time in a drought. We were in a heat wave, and our temperatures average, the highest, maybe the very, very highest, and it was rare in our city and in our area, which is near Kansas City, Missouri. The highest that our temperatures would reach would be maybe 102, 103. And we were having temperatures of 115, 116. And then my son, my youngest son, he was in his 20s. And he had just got a job at the Ford plant. This is an automotive assembly plant. It's not air conditioned, and they were working several hours a day, many hours a day. And so I'm going back to the voice of God and the cool breeze and how that relates to God's voice. Well, I had prayed to God. I had asked him to send my son a cool breeze into this plant that was not air conditioned. And my son was working probably maybe, 12, sometimes 15 hours a day. He was working overtime because he had just got the job and he was trying to impress his boss, which I'm sure he did. But this mother was concerned because he wasn't used to working in the heat and all these long hours. It was a new job and it just bothered me. I was worried about him being dehydrated. They were taking around and passing out to the employees, they were bringing them Gatorade. This is how serious this heat wave was and how hot it was. And so I began to pray, God, bring a cool breeze into this plant where my son is. So when God spoke into my spirit that day and told me, I speak to you when I send you a cool breeze, I knew he had heard my voice, and now I knew this was his voice answering and speaking to me. It was verified by my prayer request being answered back to me. Now, when he said this to me, when he said, I've sent your son a cool breeze, I had no way of knowing whether that was true, whether that was wishful thinking, whether, it was my imagination. I literally heard God tell me that I sent your son a cool breeze. So I could not wait to see my son. I couldn't wait to find out how did he get a cool breeze, because a coworker of his had told me, I work in this plant. I had told him, I said, I'm praying for a cool breeze to be sent to my son. And he said to me, he said, Sherry, there is not going to be a cool breeze in this plant. He said, I work in this plant. And he said, in fact, not only is it hot in there, it is actually hotter inside there than it is outside, which that intensified my prayers for the cool breeze. And I told him, I said, excuse me, I said, I prayed for a cool breeze. And if my God has to send an angel to Alaska or somewhere where it's cold right now and ride that cool breeze and that current of that wind or wave or whatever to take it to my son is going to have a cool breeze in that plant. And he is not going to get sick. He's not going to be dehydrated. He's not going to suffer because I am praying for him. And this is the way I pray. I pray, what is the word? It's, I pinpoint the prayer. I pray specifically. That's it. Sorry. I prayed specifically for a cool breeze. And now the Lord has told me in his voice, I speak to you. I speak to you in the cool breeze that I sent to your son. And I'm like, how did it happen? He didn't tell me how it happened. He only told me that it did happen. And he told me this in his voice. And so I couldn't wait to hear how it had happened. And it was a day or two later, because of the hours that my son was working. I was missing phone calls from him. He was missing phone calls from me. He wasn't texting because he was working, and then he'd come home and go right to sleep. And I didn't get to see him. And one day he walks into the house and I said, Nolan, how did it happen? How did God send you a cool breeze? I said, because God told me that he sent you a cold breeze. And so Nolan told me. He said, Mom, I created it. And I was like, you created it? A cold breeze? How did you do it? Cooler and fan, or you know what I mean? He said, when they assigned me to my specific outfit, uniform, what is it called? Anyway, they gave him these coveralls, and he tried them on. Well, he's a skinny, tall guy, and they gave him the size for his lean build, and they were high waters. Then he came out and did his little scarecrow dance and showed them, how, they're high waters. And they're like, oh, so that's not going to work. So they gave him another pair of these coveralls. Now, these second pair of coveralls, these were for a husky man that was tall. Now, I told you, My son is lean, very thin, and he's very tall. So he's like, well, I'd rather have the ones that are not high waters, even though they were baggy. Well, when he got his assignment happened to be in the paint booth. And in the paint booth, they had air guns, spray guns. They were painting with spray guns. And he said every so often, he said I would take that hose off, I'd put it inside my coveralls, and I would fill my coveralls up. It was like this homemade air conditioning. It was a cool breeze. And he said he created it, but God provided every resource and even gave him the idea, put it into his mind. And then God told me, I speak to you. I speak to you out of my word, out of sermons that your husband preaches, and I speak to you in a cool breeze. And so that was very personal to me. And I'm sure that you have personal times when God is just, he's given you that unction, and you knew that that voice that you heard was not your own. And if you've never had that experience, pray. Pray to God like I did. Pray. I want to hear you, God. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what you have to say to me. Speak to me in a way that I understand. And then listen. And God will speak to you just like he spoke to me. I am not anyone special or anyone worthy of hearing the voice of God. I'm not some, prophet of the Old Testament. I am a child of his, and he speaks to me. And if you are his child or want to be his child, he will speak to you. And the really, really neat thing about it is he speaks personally to you. He'll speak in a way to you that you will understand. I understood the cool breeze because I had been praying for it. And he gave me the voice that said he had provided that cool breeze. I knew it was him. It's just guaranteed, and there's no other way that this could have happened except for the voice of God. So listen today, and I pray that you will hear the voice of God. I pray that you will hear him give you instructions for your daily walk, for your life, and to show you and guide you, not just to tell you about the blessings that he's given you, but to tell you how to get closer to him, how to walk with him, where to go, and to guide you with his voice, which is real. God bless you.